First of all, thank you so much, Ron, for the opportunity. Very excited to be here. My first time here on the Angelbeat webinar. Like I said, I'm expecting to share something of value for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, right? So like Ron said, what I'm going to be talking about today is agent space, right? And how agents or this agentic AI is kind of helping us kind of reshape the future of business, right? So before I get started, just some information on myself. I'm a customer engineer with Google Cloud. I've been here for almost 5 years now, and based out of Tampa Bay, like Ron said, don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to chat with you one-on-one or, pop on a call and kind of discuss anything that I'm going to talk about further, right? So before we actually dive into the demo, let me just kind of ground these conversations on some fundamental challenges that we have seen across many organizations, right? And I think we heard this as well from our folks from AWS, right? That historically, we always had fragmented systems, right? Data silos. But I think the picture today is fundamentally different, right? Because we have many SaaS applications, we have many cloud adoption going on. We have many modern services, right, and applications, and they all work very well in their own domain, right? But I guess one core issue that we're seeing and hearing from our customers is while everything kind of works very well independently, right, getting that unified view across all this ecosystem is becoming challenging, right? It's almost impossible. It's kind of creating this sprawl of fragmented data, if I may, right? That it's kind of resulting in what we're calling fragmented intelligence, right? Because you now have these many data silos, right? And the things that kind of your companies, you're actually struggling to kind of get a complete and accurate view across all this data, right? And honestly, this has only been, amplified by the number of SaaS adoption and cloud adoption and all these new technologies that are kind of flooding the enterprise landscape today, right? So the more technology we adopt, the more those data silos become, and it becomes even harder for us to kind of get that unified vision and analytics across all this data, right? So pretty much that's the landscape we see, right? A lot of great technology, a lot of great adoption, but kind of fundamental challenges, in making everything kind of work very well together, right? And this is like a key aspect, getting rid of all these data silos is kind of a key aspect that Agentspace is trying to solve. Okay, so if we look at now the speed of business and how they need to adapt and innovate today is mind blowing, to be honest, right? Like we need to stay. Every company is looking to stay competitive. They need to stay relevant, right? And there's always this urgency of, hey, we need to adapt more technology. Gen AI kind of, it's everywhere. So if I may highlight just a few of these driving factors, right? First of all, there's always this margin pressure, right? Everyone is looking to kind of optimize cost and optimize operations. And then there's this massive push towards AI, that kind of requires significant investments, not only on the tech itself, but actually in kind of reskilling and enabling all your teams in your company, right? To kind of make sure that you're using AI and Gen AI effectively, right? And on the other hand, you have all these customers, right? Customer expectations, it's always there, right? Customers want personalized experience. They want, immediate responses, right? So all these factors are kind of driving us kind of towards a world where AI is kind of going to be leaning more and more towards like an agentic AI, right? And so we're going to be talking about something like enterprise search capabilities and how, Agentspace can kind of help you adopt Gen AI very effectively, right? So as you kind of start to think about building this enterprise search and Gen AI, right, and all these improvements that we have been seeing in this space with the reasoning models, right, LLMs. There's a new LLM almost every week or almost every day now, right? So agents are becoming, more and more common, right? So we're actually starting to see what I would call like an agent fragmentation now, right? So, but from a governance standpoint and an operational standpoint, I think it's important for you to kind of be asking yourself some questions like, for example, with all these agents coming up, right? How are you going to manage all these kinds of agents and agents platforms that are going to pop up on your enterprise, right? How you're going to make sure that all these agents are going to be managed effectively, right? And more important, you have all the guardrails and you're making sure these agents are secure, right? how you're going to make sure that all these agents, they are proof in terms of they are not going to be letting data leaks or let bad prompts, interactions from the users kind of get data out of your company, right? So and let's be honest, right? Everyone is dealing with a multi-cloud environment today, right? So you might have agents that are going to be running, on Google Cloud, maybe some agents running on AWS. So what you're going to do, how you're going to be bringing all these agents together, right? So what if we could consolidate, all these search capabilities, generative AI capabilities, and our agents, like, and bring them together in a single platform, right? That's pretty much what Agentspace is, right? So what I'm showcasing here is there's going to be a few personas here. I'm not going to throw each one of them here on the screen, but I guess think about the operational impact that an agentic AI is going to have on your workforce, right? Because, for example, you're not going to be jumping through many systems and screens anymore, right? So, for example, let me pick one persona here. For example, I'm just going to use the sales team, right, which is a very common scenario, right? So, as a sales rep, as a sales representative working for a company, I definitely have to use many systems and many screens throughout my day, right? For instance, I definitely have a CRM system. I definitely need to get data from my billing system, right? I definitely need to, maybe take some dollars and amounts from an ERP system. I definitely need to understand all the product specifications and the bill of materials that might be sitting on a different system, right? I might need to interact with the marketing team, which, is running all the marketing campaigns and all that intel, which is, by the way, living on a SaaS system, completed, detached and isolated from all my data, right? So I guess the challenge here is kind of obvious, right? You kind of have all these data silos, and it kind of makes everyone's life and workflow becomes very hard for you to kind of get and work effectively across all these systems, right? So here is just a quick preview. I'm actually going to show like a live demo in just a second, but this is the Agentspace UI, right? And it's really straightforward, it's very intuitive, and this UI is only going to be evolving as we keep getting more and more capabilities on agents. But as you start to look on deploying agent across your organization, right? Our goal is to make Agentspace be that single pane of glass, right? Not just the interface, but actual the central place where you can manage and bring all these agents together, right? So how we do that, right? So first of all, Google, we're kind of leading on search technology, right? So now with Agentspace, we're actually bringing all that powerful search capability to your enterprise, okay? So that will help you kind of break down those data silos, and we actually provide you many out of the box connectors, right? And you can think of these connectors are just plug and play, connection endpoints where you can just pinpoint that to, for example, a CRM system, a database on-prem or on the cloud, or so on and so forth, right? And Agentspace is pretty much grounded on three main pillars, right? That I would define then as find, which is that search capability. Then we get the understanding or the reasoning portion, right? And then we act. So I'm gonna double click on which one of them right now, right? So first one, starting with find. And this piece here, I would highlight that Agentspace and what is unique about offering is that it's quite unique on this space right now. And the reason being, we're not just talking about, keyword search here, right? On structured data, right? Because behind the scenes, Agentspace is actually using Gemini multimodality capabilities. And just make sure we're on the same page, right? When I say multimodality, what this means is it can actually not only search and understand text, but Gemini and Agentspace actually has that ability to actually understand and process a huge variety of data, right? So we're talking about standard documents, PDF, docs, but also images, video files, audios, so it has capability to kind of look across all those different data types and kind of make sense of all of that, right? And then we get to the understanding. So once we find, we can then understand. And think of the core value here is be able to provide your teams with a efficient engine that allows you to kind of, like I was saying before, digest all those structured and unstructured data and make all those data searchable, right? And I would say think of being able to build knowledge bases, right, from all those data, from all that data. And a key aspect is that, for example, it's you can actually be dealing with a lot of data here, right? And for example, you can actually ingest up to 300 different documents, like PDFs, Word documents, PowerPoints, Google Slides, right? And you can create that unified data set, right? So you can easily make a lot of data available and searchable instantly, right? And then we get to the last piece, which is kind of the agentic part of it. So you can now think, we started by being able to search our data. We can then make sense of our data, right? And now we can act on the data. So the act portion is where the agents come to the picture, right? So Agentspace kind of, like I was saying, can help you kind of bring all those agents together. We actually have a agent designer that allows you to quickly, very easily build an agent. But we're also going to be providing you with what we call like our first party agents, right? So out of the box, you're going to be getting some agents capabilities, and we're going to be, as Google Cloud, we're going to be offering more and more agents, for you free on the platform. But you can actually customize and build your own agent. Like I said, it's very intuitive. The UI is very straightforward. But we're also going to be working, and we work very well and integrate very well with third-party agents. So we heard, about MCP protocol. There's the HOA protocol as well. So all those specifications, they're kind of marching towards an open ecosystem, right? So that can only benefit everyone, right? So the idea with Agentspace is that you can also bring third-party agents and manage those agents on Agentspace as well. And most importantly, right, everything here that we're talking about is built from the security, from with that mindset from the ground up. So you have our back in place, right? So you heard me talking about the connectors. So when you're actually using those connectors, there are actually authentication and authorization rules and engines behind the scenes that allows your users to only find and get the data that they're entitled to see. Okay. So for example, if you're actually connecting to your CRM system, as a user, I will only have access to that CRM data that I have access to, right? I'm not going to be, opening that Pandora box and now everyone is going to be having access to your CRM. No, that's not how it works, right? So, of course, we have been at Google Cloud, we have a long standing with kind of making sure that we're building AI very, very responsibly, right? So let me show like a quick demo, and let me switch my screen here in just a second. So let me go here. So you should be seeing my Agentspace UI now, right? So before I actually kind of talk about the actual use case here, let me just kind of give you a quick tour of what we're seeing here. So this is the Agentspace UI. On my left-hand side here, for example, you can see that I can start a new conversation. I actually have a history of conversation that I had recently. I have some of my previous notebooks. I have some of the agents that my company made available for me, for example. And on this main panel here, for example, I can see that I have my search box. This is how I'm actually going to interacting with the platform. I can then see some of the connectors that I have access to. So I have ServiceNow, I have a Maintenance, which is my customer system for this demo environment. I have Concur, I have Google Drive, Confluence, and so on and so forth. So not only that, right? I think Agentspace, the key aspect is the intention here is for Agentspace to be that single pane of glass for our employees and how they're going to be interacting with all those data silos, right? So you can see here that I actually have a section where I can be bringing news. So for example, I have tailored new from my industry, from my company, and all this is actually created by the Agentspace admins, right? So your marketing team can actually make sure that all the information being shown here is actually relevant to the employees, right? And then you have some announcements going on across my company. I have some sample prompts, some sample notebooks, and some sample agents as well that my company made available for me, right? So the demo I'm going to be talking about here today is the role I'm going to be playing is I'm going to be like a field technician for a manufacturing company. Okay, so let's just pretend that I work for, in this case, symbol fabrication. And by the way, you can see here that there is some branding allowed, so you can actually put your logos. You can actually make this look and feel like it is part of your intranet, it's part of your company brand, right? So I'm going to be pretending that I am a field technician. Okay. So my job is actually to go on sites and visit customers that are using our systems, our machinery, right? And let's just pretend that I am on site now. A customer filed like a support ticket or a work order, and I need to kind of help and troubleshoot that customer and see what's going on there, right? And this kind of for the demo purpose, I'm actually showing this as in a web view, right? But this could actually be displayed on a tablet, or a mobile phone, right? So I'm not going to be typing. I'm just going to be copy and paste my prompts here, right? But let's just pretend that I arrived at the factory and I need to start, troubleshooting what's going on with the equipment that the customer reported, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I can actually ask. Let me just copy and paste here. Hey, can you put the manual for the Makino machinery that is a DA500, and this is the serial number, right? So if I search that, okay, so now you can see that Agentspace actually gave me, okay, so I have the manual for that. So all this is actually being grounded, as part of the connectors on my data, right? And a key aspect here is that, okay, so I like this looks correct. I can click on this add all, and what this is doing is actually bringing this data into my session. So all the following prompts that I'm going to ask now is actually going to be grounded on this specific machine that is actually the type that I need to troubleshoot, right? So then I can say, let's just pretend that I'm on site, right? And I was actually able to download, for example, a time series with all the data from the machine, right? So what I can do now is I can actually ask Agentspace to kind of help me run some diagnostics based on that data, right? And you can see here that I actually have the diagnostics bot in bold. And what this means is this is actually I am interacting with a different agent or a different AI that's available on the platform. So this diagnostic bot, for example, could have been a model, an agent that has been trained on to only perform diagnosis on our machines, right? So think of it being trained on all our troubleshooting, our knowledge bases, all the skills that our employees have, right? So by now I can just upload that time series. Let me just do that, for example, that I got from the machine. I can click on that and say, hey, can you help me run a diagnostic, right? So it's actually going to run a diagnostic there. And it kind of found that there was a problem with the model there, right? So would you like more information how you can actually access the model? Let me just say that I'm going to say yes, right? So I do that, and it's actually going to pull the manual and going to walk me through the steps on how I can actually start, accessing the model for that machine. So I'm not gonna through all the steps, but you can see that's very intuitive and very, even with images, how I can actually locate the model, how I can actually disconnect and follow all the steps. And what is even amazing that is actually gave me some information. Hey, if you want, I actually help you do some further diagnosis, which is, hey, start the motor in test mode, record the sound, and upload the recording here so I can kind of hear that and see if I can find anything wrong with the engine, right? So let's just pretend that I'm on site. I'm going to record an audio, from the motor running. I follow all the steps, and I can just, for example, say, yes, I'm going to engage the diagnostic bot again and say, hey, using this recording, kind of help me understand what's going on, right? So I now have like an audio file that I recorded from the machine, from the motor running, right? And this is like the modality capability that I was talking about before in action, right? So not only text, but I'm actually asking Agentspace and the agents to actually digest this audio file that I put together, right? So you can see that it's actually can understand that file, that audio, right, and say, okay, this apparently based on the noise that I heard on this audio, right, it could be like a lubrication issue or it could be like a bearing issue. So okay, that's nice, right? So even provide me some recommended action on, hey, I can actually lubricate or I can actually replace the bearing, right? So I can then say, okay, so what do you want to do now, right? So let's just pretend that I'm gonna actually ask, okay, actually let's just replace the bearing, right? Let's create a work order and email the customers to confirm, what I'm gonna be doing as part of this work order. So once I do that, okay, so what Agentspace actually did was it actually went on our CRM and created like a work order for the customer and actually drafted like an email. For example, hey, this is my customer. Okay, I'm gonna be replacing our spindle motor, and all this I can tweak. This is just like a draft, right? Which, by the way, looks pretty good, right? So it's kind of calling, hey, Bill, just a summary of what's going on. This is the summary, the diagnose process. I uploaded an audio file. There's a problem with forbearing. I'm going to replace that. Next steps. Okay. So I can say, okay, I can actually just, this looks good to me, right? I can just send the email and done, right? So that was the demo. I think the intention here was kind of to show how agents are going to be, impacting our lives starting pretty soon, right? So the use case I went through is how, as a field technician on the field, I was actually able to leverage AI to kind of troubleshoot and use, and find information about it, understand the troubleshooting process, and actually AI was able to kind of help me troubleshoot by kind of just digesting that audio file and finding the issue with the engine, right? So that was it for today, Ron.